Let me tell you something that really matters. When a man is not being honest, he usually does not hide the truth perfectly. He leaks it, not always in the facts, but in the way he answers, the way he pauses, the way he tries to stay in control. And many people miss that, not because they are foolish, not because they cannot see. They miss it because they ask the kind of questions he is ready for, safe ones, usual ones, questions that give him time to smile, soften his voice, change the subject, and keep the moment under control. But truth shows itself when someone is taken off script. That is where the mask slips. So in this script, I am going to give you 7 questions, not to attack, not to accuse, not to turn love into a courtroom, but to reveal. Because the right question, asked with calm energy and quiet confidence, does not just bring an answer. It reveals a pattern, and that pattern tells you more than any perfect line ever will. Stay with me, because this is where most people get it wrong. They chase the truth, they press harder, they ask more. But the truth is not found by force. It is found through clarity. It appears when there is nowhere left to hide. And once you learn how to create that space, you stop begging for honesty and start recognizing what is already in front of you. That changes everything. It changes how you listen, how you trust, and how you protect your peace without needing drama to do it. The first question is simple, but do not underestimate it. Ask, what made you think of me right now? It sounds light. It even sounds sweet. That is why it works. A genuine man usually has a natural answer. Maybe something reminded him of you. Maybe he saw something funny. Maybe he heard a song. Past a place, remembered a moment. The answer tends to come with ease because it is real. But a dishonest man often struggles with this question because it asks for a real reason in real time. He may go broad, he may get vague, he may say something general that sounds nice but says almost nothing. That matters. The second question is this: walk me through your day from start to finish. Details are difficult to fake over and over again. Someone telling the truth does not need a perfect script. He just remembers his day. But someone trying to manage a story now has to build a sequence, hold it together, and make sure it sounds normal all at once. Watch for holes, watch for strange jumps, watch for irritation, especially if the question itself was calm. Third question: who were you with when that happened? Listen closely here. A truthful person usually gives clear names, clear roles, clear context. A dishonest person often protects himself with fog. He may say just some people, a friend, a few guys, nothing important. Vagueness is not always guilt, but repeated vagueness is often a shield. And when you begin to notice that shield, you start seeing more than the words. You start seeing the strategy behind them. That is the difference. That is where awareness begins. The fourth question is powerful in a very quiet way. Ask, why did you not tell me that earlier? This question is not only about what happened, it is about openness. It is about whether he values honesty when it is inconvenient, or only when it is easy. His answer can tell you a lot. Does he reflect? Does he understand why it matters? Or does he brush it off, minimize it, and make your concern feel like the problem? Pay attention. The fifth question shifts the whole frame. Ask, how would you feel if I did the same thing? Now you are moving him from defense into perspective. A man acting with integrity will usually slow down here. He will think. He may not love the question, but he will understand it. A guilty man often does something different. He may avoid it. He may laugh it off. He may reduce the seriousness of what happened because he knows deep down that if the roles were reversed, he would not be so calm. The sixth question is one of the strongest. Is there anything you think I would be upset to find out later? This gives him a clean chance to come forward without you forcing a confession. That is what makes it so revealing. Watch his face. Watch the pause. Watch whether he answers the question or only reacts to the danger in it. And then the seventh question, maybe the hardest one of all. Do you feel you have been completely honest with me? After you ask it, let the silence stay. Do not rush in. Do not rescue him from the discomfort. Let him sit with his own answer. because sometimes people reveal the most when they hear their own words hanging in the air and realize they cannot hide inside them anymore. Here is the key point. This is not about catching someone in a lie like it is a game. It is not about trying to win. It is about learning how to observe. Does he become defensive or thoughtful? Does he move toward connection or toward control? Does he answer what was asked, or does he twist the conversation until the original question disappears? A genuine man usually does not fear clarity. He may not enjoy every conversation, but he does not panic when truth is invited into the room. A man who is hiding something often does more than slip once. He creates a pattern of discomfort, a pattern of inconsistency, a pattern of avoidance. And once you see that pattern, you stop needing dramatic proof every single time. This part matters, so do not miss it. Many people think truth comes from asking more questions, but often it comes from asking better ones. There is a huge difference. Predictable questions give people room to prepare. Emotional questions give them room to defend. Accusations make them focus on managing your reaction. But thoughtful, open questions create a different kind of pressure. Not loud pressure, not cruel pressure, psychological pressure. The kind that makes it much harder for someone dishonest to stay smooth and consistent. These questions ask for explanation instead of performance. That is why they work. That is where cracks start to show. Not because you forced them open, but because the person could not keep everything lined up while staying believable. The way a question is framed changes everything. Open questions require a person to think, remember, and answer in real time. For someone who is truthful, that process is usually natural. Their memory supports them. They may pause now and then, but the pause feels normal, not engineered. For someone hiding something, that same process becomes heavy. Now he has to think about what sounds possible, what should be left out, what matches what he said before, and how to make it all feel smooth at the same time. That is a lot to hold. And under that pressure, little things begin to show. A delay that feels too sharp, a detail that seems oddly polished, a tone that changes for no clear reason, an answer that is longer than it needed to be, or shorter, sometimes far shorter. Emotional neutrality matters too. If you ask calmly, without heat, without loaded language, the other person often lowers his guard. He feels less attacked. That makes the answer more spontaneous, and spontaneous answers tell you more. When a question comes wrapped in anger, people prepare for battle. Then it gets harder to tell what is true and what is simply defense. Timing matters as well. Ask a thoughtful question when he is not expecting it, and you may get a more honest reaction before the performance begins. That is not about trapping someone, it is about understanding that real truth often appears in unfiltered moments, before the mind has time to stage a perfect scene. And when that happens, clarity becomes easier to recognize because there is less acting in the room and more reality. Honesty has a certain ease to it. It is not always polished, it is not always dramatic, but it has a steady feeling. When someone is telling the truth, he usually does not need to work too hard to maintain his story, because the story already lives in memory. His answers may not be perfect, but they tend to be clear, direct, and stable. There is a natural flow. He does not seem overly busy trying to control every word or predict every reaction. He may stop to think, sure, but the pause feels real. It does not feel like calculation dressed up as reflection. In contrast, dishonesty often brings friction. A man who is hiding something often leans on blur and distance because vagueness gives him room to move later. If he never gets too specific, he can always reshape the story if needed. Instead of saying where he was, he may speak in broad terms. Instead of naming who he was with, he may gloss past it. Instead of filling in the middle of the story, he may jump from beginning to end and hope you do not look too closely at what is missing. At first, this may seem small, even casual, but over time, the lack of clarity starts standing out more and more. Deflection is another common sign. He may answer a question with a question. He may make a joke. He may shift focus onto you. Sometimes it is subtle. Other times it is obvious. But the goal is often the same: to avoid being pinned down to something firm. That does not mean every vague answer is a lie. Anyone can be tired or distracted. What matters is whether clarity returns, or whether the fog keeps getting thicker the longer he talks. This is why specific open questions are so useful. They pull a person out of autopilot and into live thinking. A closed question can be escaped with a yes, a no, or a short line that goes nowhere. But an open question asks for explanation. It asks for sequence. It asks for connection. And that is exactly where shaky stories start to wobble. When someone is truthful, memory does most of the work. He can describe what happened with a reasonable amount of detail, and even if he forgets a small part, the main story stays in line because it came from something real. But when someone is not being honest, he is not remembering. He is building. He is constructing. And construction takes effort. He has to decide what sounds normal, what fits the earlier version, and what will not cause follow-up questions. The more detailed the question, the harder that becomes. For example, asking "What did you do last night?" might get a smooth general answer, but asking "What time did you leave?" "Who were you with?" and "What happened after that?" creates structure. It gives the story a shape, and false stories often struggle inside clear structure because every extra piece has to fit with every other piece. Also, open questions remove the safety of tiny answers. If the question clearly invites detail and the answer keeps slipping away from detail, that becomes noticeable. And when you follow up later, a truthful story usually remains fairly steady. A dishonest one may shift a little. A time changes, a person disappears, a new reason appears. Small changes, yes, but small changes repeated enough times start to tell a much bigger story than the original words ever did. Words can be chosen with care. They can be edited, softened, sharpened, and shaped to create an image. Reactions are harder to manage. That is why how someone responds often reveals more than the actual sentence that comes out of his mouth. When a person is being honest, the reaction usually fits the moment. A fair question receives a fair response. Maybe calm, maybe thoughtful, maybe slightly uncomfortable, but still open. He does not instantly treat the question like a threat because he is not trying to protect a hidden version of events. When something deeper is being covered, though, defensiveness often enters fast. And defensiveness does not always look loud. Sometimes it sounds like irritation, sometimes sarcasm, sometimes a sharp change in tone. A simple question may suddenly be answered with, "Why are you asking that?" or "Do you not trust me?" Notice what happens there. The focus shifts away from the question and onto your intention. That shift can be very telling because it suggests the person is more interested in guarding himself than in creating understanding. Irritation matters too, especially when it feels bigger than the moment. If someone becomes unusually annoyed by a plain question, it may mean the question touched something he did not want touched. That alone is not final proof. But if the same irritation shows up around similar topics again and again, pay attention. Avoidance can be even quieter. He may answer, but not really. He may sound relevant without being clear. He may move the conversation sideways instead of forward. These moments are easy to miss if you only listen to words. But once you begin watching the reaction, the rhythm, the slight change in energy, you start hearing what the person is really saying beneath the answer. There is deep power in giving someone a real chance to be honest without pressure. Most people do not realize how revealing that can be. When you create a space where a person does not feel instantly attacked, something changes. His guard may lower. He may stop performing for a second. He may actually feel the weight of what he said or did. And in that moment, self-awareness can enter the room. That is why a calm tone matters so much. When people feel cornered, they often protect themselves, they deny, they redirect, they push back, they may even attack you for asking. But when the question is gentle and clear, the pressure changes shape. It is no longer a fight to survive, it becomes a choice. Will he step into honesty or not? That is what you are really watching. Questions like, "Is there something I should know?" or "Is there anything you have not told me yet?" can be incredibly revealing because they do not accuse, they invite. And that invitation creates tension for someone who is hiding something. He now has a clean opening to tell the truth. If he refuses it, the refusal says something. If he hesitates, that says something too. Sometimes the signs are small: a long pause, a nervous shift, a half answer, a strange smile, a sudden need to explain too much. Silence is important here. After you ask a meaningful question, do not rush to fill the quiet. Let it breathe. Silence creates space, and inside that space, people often reveal more than they planned. If he is honest, he can usually sit in that silence without much trouble. If he is hiding something, the silence may feel loud, and loud silence often makes hidden things start moving toward the surface. One strange answer does not tell the whole story. One awkward moment does not define a person. People get tired, they get distracted, they speak badly, they forget details. That is why real understanding does not come from one single incident. It comes from pattern. This is a big one, so really let it sink in. When you step back and watch behavior over time, clarity starts to build on its own. If someone is usually open, direct, and steady, then one vague answer may mean very little. But if vagueness appears again and again, especially around the same kind of topic, then it starts to look less like chance and more like method. The same is true for defensiveness, missing details, or shifting explanations. Repeated behavior becomes information. A truthful person does not need to memorize a script. His account stays fairly stable because it is linked to what really happened. Minor details may move a little, sure, but the heart of the story remains. A dishonest person has a harder task. Over time, it gets more difficult to keep every version aligned. Small cracks show up, a timeline changes, a detail is added, another one disappears. The reason evolves depending on what is being questioned. Also, look at whether the behavior matches the words. Someone can say all the right things in one conversation, but if his actions repeatedly move in another direction, that mismatch becomes part of the pattern too. Promising openness while always avoiding certain questions is not a small thing. It is information, and once that pattern becomes clear, you no longer need to force understanding. It begins to speak loudly enough on its own. Observing patterns takes patience. It takes emotional control. It asks you not to rush into a conclusion just because one answer felt off or one moment felt strange. That does not mean ignoring warning signs. It means placing them inside a bigger frame so you can see what is really there. When people panic, they often either excuse everything or condemn everything. Both can blind you. But when you stay calm and keep watching, the overall picture becomes harder to deny. Charm in one moment does not erase confusion in 10 others. A sweet line does not cancel repeated avoidance. A polished explanation does not matter much if the facts keep shifting around it. This is where your strength grows. You stop getting pulled into every small emotional wave. You start reading the whole current, and the whole current tells you whether you are dealing with someone who values truth or someone who values control. Do not miss this part. Your job is not to become a detective in love. Your job is not to chase every clue until you are exhausted. Your job is to raise your standard for clarity and then notice who can meet it with peace and who cannot. A real man may not be perfect, but he will not need confusion to stay close to you. He will not need fog to feel safe. He will not need your self-doubt to keep his story standing. And if someone does need those things, that alone tells you more than another 100 arguments ever could. The truth does not always shout. Sometimes it shows itself quietly through repeated discomfort, repeated blur, repeated deflection, until eventually the pattern becomes impossible to unsee. So if you take anything from this, let it be this. Better questions create better clarity. Calm reveals more than chaos. Precision reveals more than pressure. And patterns reveal more than isolated moments ever can. You do not need to interrogate. You do not need to beg. You do not need to become louder just to feel certain. Ask clearly, listen fully, watch closely, then step back and let the behavior speak. If a man is honest, that honesty usually carries a certain ease. Even when the topic is hard, there is a steadiness in it. Even when the answer is uncomfortable, there is a willingness to stay present and clear. But if he is hiding something, the strain often begins to show, not always in one obvious collapse, more often in repeated little signs. A pause that feels wrong, a detail that goes missing, a reaction that feels bigger than the moment, a story that changes shape each time it is touched. That is why your goal is not to pull the truth out with force. Your goal is to create the kind of space where truth can either stand on its own or expose the weakness of everything pretending to be it. And once you learn how to do that, everything changes. You trust yourself more. You stop over-explaining your instincts. You stop giving endless chances to things that keep feeling off. And you begin to understand that clarity is not cruel. It is kind. It protects your peace. It protects your future. It protects your ability to love without losing yourself. If this message spoke to you, hold on to it. Come back to it. Use it wisely. Because the moment you stop chasing answers and start watching patterns, people reveal exactly who they are.